they told me that what they asked me to speak on was how to win in business as a woman. And you see the crowd that attracted. Well, I think I had a similar feeling about that, and I spoke to, well, my buddy Ryan is here, not all girls. I asked my mom about that subject, and I knew exactly the answer that I would get. It was a big eye roll, like only a 91-year-old can give you. And she said, as far as how to win in business as a woman goes, she said, ignore it and move on. So that's the end of the speech. Anyway, I'm going to switch gears a little bit because instead of that, we'll just talk a little bit more about her leadership style, which I think really kind of transcends whether or not you're a man or a woman. So she's really a strong, intense leader, but completely collaborative. Actually, the New York Times asked her that same question recently, and they got the same eye roll that I got when I asked the question. They did a big, wonderful story about her, but they were asking, is your style emanating from the fact that you are a woman? And she'd never thought about it, but I think maybe so. So, you know, would it have been different if she was a man? And she really did give them the same eye roll and looked at the nice young man and said, why don't we talk about something that matters? So you can talk like that when you're 91. So I wanted to convey a lot of this. So I did this book called Miss Ella of Commander's Palace. And that led to the documentary, which she wanted nothing to do with either one of these things. But let me just quickly, I want to say that I'm very tickled to be here because I'm an SMU girl. Back when we had the best football team money could buy. Now you know exactly how old I am. And I loved so much sour cream chicken enchiladas at Herrera's Cafe No. 9. Do you know, is that still there? It was always called No. 9. I was like, where's the other 8? I never did understand that. But anyway, and then Campese's. If we have time at the end, I will tell you a mobster story about Dallas mobsters and New Orleans mobsters. Seriously. And then LSD. Do y'all still have that? Lone Star Donuts. We called it an LSD run when I was in college here. You make a little run when you're studying to those fabulous donuts. And then Gene Street was cranking up the Black Eyed Peas. Is he still in the restaurant business here? So the restaurant, anybody from Dallas? Okay, what was Gene Street's first restaurant? Anybody remember? Just fun for me, I'm old. I think it was Snuffers. Do you remember Snuffers? That's how old I am. We thought that eating deep fried vegetables and ranch dressing was eating healthy, because that's what Gene Street was serving. Anyway, but then I was here in business school at SMU, and Norman Brinker would regularly be a guest speaker, and it was, you know, amazing. One of my teachers at the business school gave us a book to read called The Road Less Traveled. And this is not a classic business book, but maybe one of the most important books I ever read, nonetheless. And then when I was young, we had Brennan's of Dallas, here in Dallas, down in one main place. But Texas was not ready for us. No matter what we put on the menu, they just ordered steak. And, but it was a damn good restaurant, it really was. And I have so many great memories of the French Room, being at the Mansion one night. The Mansion at the time was associated with the 21 Club in New York, and I was with my roommate Sue Ellen. Of course, her name was Sue Ellen. We're in Texas, you know. And this was during that whole JR thing, too. But anyway, her mother's husband told us that we should very much inhale the cigars that we were having that night, and I'm still getting green thinking about it. But anyway, I had a great time in Dallas. And you see how almost all my memories are associated with food. But let me tell you about the restaurants I'm involved in. Really bad at this kind of thing. So there's Mom and I in the kitchen at Commander's. But it's about, these are the restaurants I'm involved in day to day. Commander's Palace in New Orleans, Cafe Adelaide, and the Swizzle Stick Bar, which was very much at the forefront of the cocktail revolution in America. And Brennan's of Houston, which just had its 50th birthday. Now that's saying something in Houston, Texas. And Sobu. Sobu stands for South of Bourbon. It's the home of civilized drinking. It's a very cocktail-centric restaurant with Louisiana street food inspired food. So those things I'm involved in day to day, as well as a pizzeria called Reginelli's. And there's some of the family. There's about 18 restaurants, including all my cousins' places. So there's about 3 groups of us. It doesn't matter, we're all related. My cousin Dickie has a bunch of places. My cousin Ralph has a bunch of places. And so that's the whole gang and all the restaurants. These are some of the books that I've been able to do. The one in the middle, In the Land of Cocktails, I consider my greatest business accomplishment because I got somebody to pay me to write about drinks. So That was a good thing. So, but then this is the other thing I'm involved in. I know you've never heard of it because nobody has, because it's not open yet. New Orleans Culinary and Hospitality Institute is a 93,000 square foot culinary school that, if it doesn't kill me, will open in New Orleans in the fall of next year if we can just scramble and get a few more dollars in and start construction in about a month. But it's a magnificent facility. Anyway, I'm just talking about it because I can't help myself. But that, the next thing that happened was I just knew I had to write this book about my mom. Everybody always said that we should write a book, that she should, and we're like, we wrote a book, we wrote a lot of books. And our cookbooks had a lot of stories, and if you read them, you really did know a lot about us. But I knew that's not what people wanted. They wanted to know how she got to be her. And so I finally did the book, and I got to tell you, having an uncooperative main subject is not a good idea. But we did it, and then from that came some folks who wanted to make a documentary. She wanted not a damn thing to do with that. But long story short, this filmmaker came to town, Oscar nominated, had an extraordinary story herself. And actually her grandfather, about whom she made a documentary, started Disney with Walt Disney. You can Google that. The guy's name's Ub Iwerks. It's an amazing story. She's an amazing lady, so that sucked Mom in. And we made this documentary, and we sold it to Netflix, and it came out about a month ago. So it's just the craziest thing that happened. So I'm going to switch to that type of subject and talk about the role of women in the hospitality industry and characteristics that are related to success. Has anybody here ever met my mom? Ryan, you met my mom? Yeah. So often when I'm in a room of people in our industry, so many people have, but you all are younger. So I'll tell you, she's the nicest, hardest working, truly generous, driven, creative, funny force of nature you'll ever meet. And she's a leader, whether it's natural or learned, I have no idea. All I can tell you is she can get hundreds of people moving in the same direction, almost no matter the subject. And she'll push you and make you believe you can do things you never thought you could. And I got to tell you, it could have been any business. It's just lucky for America that it was food. It doesn't really matter what it was going to be. She was going to end up leading. So she was a groundbreaking American woman in a traditional men's world in the 1940s. She pulled New Orleans cuisine out of the last century. I got to tell you, there's an old joke about New Orleans, you know, pre my mom and a lot of the new folks these days, that it was a city of 500 restaurants and 5 recipes, and that wasn't that far from the truth in fine dining. And she was having none of that. So she was the force that said, we're not going to have this. Restaurants in New Orleans just didn't even change their menus. She wanted New Orleans to be the Paris of America. That's always been the dream. And that's a part of the dream for me about the culinary school, is that how the hell is it that we don't already have a culinary school in New Orleans? We have one in San Antonio and Charlotte and not New Orleans. Nothing against those towns, but that makes no sense to me. So she also wanted America to know who was in the kitchen. That sounds like nothing to you all, but in 1940, 1950, 1970, 1980, that was not happening. There was nobody clamoring to say who's the chef. You just went to the restaurant. You may or may not have known the restaurateur, but nobody was asking who the chef was. But she wanted people to know, and she pushed them out of the kitchen. And that was, you know, really a part of creating celebrity chefs. When she was doing that, eventually with Paul Prudhomme, the only other chef really starting to peek out from behind the kitchen was Wolfgang Puck. I mean, that was really the very, very beginning of all that. And she really wrote the book on hospitality, which you all in the restaurant business know that's the harder part of the equation. I don't care what any damn chef tells you. Most good ones will tell you that the service is as hard or harder. And she also, you know, mastered the arts of mentoring and creating a culture that thrives on excellence. So just really a pioneer of the modern American food movement and the way we eat now, because she kept pushing and pushing. So, but at 18, she goes to work at her brother's bar on Bourbon Street. You ever been to the Absinthe House or seen the Absinthe House on Bourbon Street? So, spent 2 weeks there one night? From the house. So you've spent 2 weeks there one night. Yeah. Anyway, it was a bar, and they started serving a little food. And then he buys a restaurant across the street. From there, let's see if there's a picture. That's her beloved brother Owen, who was her mentor and her father. And so then they bought the one on the right, which was called Vieux Carré, and then called Brennan's Vieux Carré. And what happens is one day, she's 18 years old, she's working there. She had been in secretary school. That lasted for all of like 2 weeks. She shows up down at her brother's bar on Bourbon Street, and her mother said, don't you go to that nasty French Quarter. You're not going to go working down. Anyway, there she was working. And she kept saying, what are you doing with that restaurant? She said, that restaurant is terrible. And he said, well, if you're so smart, go fix it. This began a restaurant career. So there she goes, and to make a long story short, they do that, and then they're going to move to Brennan's on Royal Street, which you might be familiar with. But before they even moved, her mentor, the leader of the family, and her beloved brother, drops dead. So now here they are, Irish family, not a lot of money. He drops dead. So then mom's sort of the clear leader of the family. So the bank pulls a loan because it's a woman running the business. Can't possibly work out like that, right? The bank pulls a loan. Anyway, they got it together. They put together 10 family mortgages. Spent $1 million way back then. Anyway, it worked out rather well, and really just went great from the get-go. She ran it. It was a smash hit. Runs it for 18 years. Then her family fires her. And so at the same time, she kind of moves from day to day at Brennan's to Commander's Palace. And right before that, she'd gotten divorced. Her sister had cancer. And she got a career-shattering review that said Commander's was so bad we can't even give it a star or a bean. They gave it a big black ball. And but after a good cry, all that just sort of fanned the flames of her career. And I would ask her sometimes, how'd you make it through all that? And she would say, I don't remember having a choice. But of course she did. So everybody wanted to do this darn book, and you were saying the subtitle earlier is I don't want a restaurant where a jazz band can't come marching through, and that just speaks to how my mom runs a restaurant and how I think more people should. We take ourselves too damn seriously. People are there to have fun. But I wanted the subtitle to be God and I are okay, he knew I had to work brunch, because those are the type of things he just says on a regular basis. But the publisher said I could not use the word God in the title, which I thought was strange. What an awesome search word that would be, God, and then up comes our book. Anyway, but it's never been about her. That's why she didn't want the book about the film. She was all about getting pressed for the restaurant, and if it had to be her doing the interview, fine. But she didn't want a book or a film all about her, because it was always about the team and the businesses and the goals and the next thing we're trying to accomplish. But all that came from her core philosophies. So here's going to be some of those. And this is it. Keep evolving. And people say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. She says if it ain't broke, fix it anyway. Keep moving, keep evolving. And because if you're not moving forward, you're about to get run over. And there's so many examples of things she did like that. Like right now, the menu at Commander's Palace, people do tasting menus. Ours is called the Chef's Playground, and that's where we push the envelope and always keep trying to go forward. We have lots of things to, for people who aren't as daring on the menu, and we cover all that turf too. But then, back in the day, New Orleans restaurants did not have English on the menu. Imagine that. It was groundbreaking when at Brennan's she decided to put English on the menu and actually put a description on the menu. Because back then the waiter would come and he would, list 7 things. And could you tell me number 3 again? Don't you hate that? And so she banished that, and we just started describing food. Believe it or not, that was a big deal. We actually had the 3rd chef's table in America. We didn't even know that. The Wall Street Journal did a story and came and told us. Charlie Trotter, you've heard of my old friend Charlie, late Charlie, did the first one. My brother at Brennan's in Houston copied him immediately, and he had the second one, and then I copied him. Mom and I copied. So we have the 3rd oldest one of those. Mom created something called Breakfast at Brennan's. She created something called Jazz Brunch. Things like Gang Service, Bananas Foster. So it was always about pushing and evolving the next goal. She lives next door to Commander's Palace right now. She used to live 2 blocks away and said she didn't like to commute. But she's over there right now, and my cousin Lowie and I have been pretty much running the joint for, a good long while, though she's still there, helping and telling me almost every day that it's the worst restaurant in America. So she is a tough critic, but also the head cheerleader. And that's what you have to be, I think. You got to be head cheer, but that doesn't really work if you're not also head cheerleader. So one of the things that she talks about, and is the just hallmark of our company, is called trust and respect. So that's her sitting with our late chef, Jamie Shannon. And it's about when she first meets a brand new employee, if you first came to work there that day, she would sit in and say, hi, who are you? I don't think I know you. And she would get to know you, and she would say, now tell me all about you. Now what are you going to do? Now tell me how you're going to get there. And are you in school? And do you have a mentor? And you're going to have this whole conversation. And then she's going to say, now let me tell you something. I'm going to come to work every day, and I'm going to try to earn your trust and respect. You don't owe it to me. I'm going to try to earn it. And you try to earn mine. And let's see how that goes. And when you start like that with people, and then you follow up and say, now wait a minute, you said you had a plan, and you said you were going to do this, and you said you were going to read that book I gave you. Now how we doing? Then they're really listening to you. Then they're paying attention, and that pervades the culture of the company. And she gives praise absolutely, positively, enthusiastically. You know people who give praise very begrudgingly? You know, I feel sad for those people because I think it means they're insecure. We all want praise, so give it. What the hell does it cost you? Just like apologies in restaurants. They don't cost anything. Give them freely. So giving all that praise, you know, catch them doing something right. But I'll tell you this. Everybody who works with her will try like hell not to disappoint her because she's given so much of herself to you that you can't believe that you could ever disappoint her. But you do sometimes have to be willing to be the bad guy. You know, everybody's not always on top of their game, doing their best thing. I got to tell you about a nephew of mine, and some of y'all over the years may get to know a bunch of them because they're going to go in the business. And his dad said that his son, my nephew, was going to college part-time, but he was paying full-time. So that was not going all that well. And so they sort of wrapped that up for the moment. And on my doorstep, this young man, my nephew, who I love, shows up and says he wants to work for me. Well, he shows up disheveled, unshaven, in a wrinkled shirt. And I sat down with him and said, I don't know where the hell it is you think you want to work. And I don't know what you're thinking coming here working like that. And anyway, up one side and down the other side of him. I said, let me tell you something. You got 30 minutes to get home, get back here looking sharp, and then I will consider talking to you about, anyway, you get the idea what the speech went like. That kid loves me today. And he came and he worked harder than he's ever worked in his life. And he really got the passion for the restaurant business. He really got the pride, and he really came to understand the standards. But you got to give him that energy. We pamper them all a little too much when they're, you know. Sometimes it's just time to grow up, and so that worked really well. I'll tell you a story like that. I have no idea with this guy that Mom was working with. So Mom banished the whole idea of screaming and yelling in kitchens, you know, a long time ago. It's just like, what good's going to come of that? I don't care if your European chef did that to you. We're not doing that here. End of that, we're not doing it. And Emerald didn't really do it, but this one particular day, he was screaming and yelling and carrying on, and she didn't know what the hell his problem was. So she always has a pad of paper that she's working on, and you know, giving you notes. So she wrote real big on the pad of paper, and she wrote, "You're too smart to be so stupid," and she held it up for him and everybody in the kitchen across to see. He kind of looked at her, and she looked at him, and they laughed, and he never did it again. So the point is, there's just different ways to handle those things. But you have to communicate your values. And we do that every day in pre-meal meetings. Raise your hand if you're in the restaurant business here. A few people. Do you all do pre-meal meetings? Do you? Do you? Are they good? Ah, see? I think it's the biggest waste of a great opportunity that you have every day. Every day, twice a day, you get a chance to convey something. It can be almost anything. The other couple nights ago, I was doing pre-meal at Commander's, and I told them about this wonderful restaurant in New Orleans. It's a tiny little place that I went called 1,000 Figs, if you make it over there. Anyway, and I said, you know what really impressed me? The bathroom was sparkling. And I started talking about that. Anyway, there's all kinds of ways to talk at pre-meal to convey your values, and when you don't do it, it's a damn shame. So we do it during pre-meals and one-on-ones, and it's about motivation and accountability. 90% motivation, though. So I've seen her do this conversation like I started to have with you. That one's just about trust and respect. But later on, she would start a conversation, and it would be, I always called it the she's going to change your life conversation. I'd walk by and see her talking to somebody. I'm like, oh my God, that poor kid has no idea what's about to happen. But she would really try to affect you and motivate you and get you to understand what you're capable of. She would do it all the time. And you know, there's an old thing about Bear Bryant. You know, remember Bear Bryant, the coach from Alabama, the most winning coach in the South, whatever. Anyway, I'm so old. You know Bear Bryant. Okay. So Bear Bryant, that was known, a saying about him was, he could take his team and beat your team any day of the week. Or he could take your team and beat his team any day of the week. You get the point, and that's how it is kind of with my mom. My aunt is obsessed with flowers and plants, and she said when she was a little girl in grade school, they gave her a little mud and a seed and told her to put it in the sun and water it every day, and when a plant grew out of that, she's kind of never gotten over it. Well, my mother says, Dottie likes to plant flowers, I like to plant people. So it's just the way she thinks about it. This is another thing that we really believe in. Let me ask y'all something. There's so few men, but anyway, what business is the NFL in? What did you say? NFL's in the people business. The what? Money business. What? Party? Oh, that's amazing. Perhaps said entertainment. So back a few years ago, I think everybody would have said football. But they were one of the first leagues to figure out a long time ago that they're not in the football business. It's not the only business they're in. They are in the entertainment business, you know, and all of the above. So we figured out a long time ago we're not in the food business. We're in the business of creating dining memories. That's what we're in the business of doing. Your business might be slightly different, and you just got to figure that thing out, because when you figure that thing out, it all changes. But I think all of us are in the hospitality business, and we forget that way too often. You know the word restaurant? Does anybody know what the word restaurant is derived from? What does it mean? Anybody? Here we are at the Texas Restaurant Association. It's derived from the word to restore. Isn't that lovely? And it's an important thing to remember, because that's, and not just restore by we gave you something to eat, but the whole damn thing. So all of our decisions go through the filter of, does it help us create dining memories? So these are the ways we think those things through. So to me, the definition of hospitality, it includes everything that any business, person, or organization does to affect how their customers, we like to say guests, feel. Everything. You got a hard-to-use website, you got a cranky gal on the phone and I can't hear the smile, you got bad body language. Here's my favorite: when you go to a restaurant and you walk up to the door, this is rude, but I call it the bimbo at the door. Anyway, and you go and you walk in and they go like this. They go, "Hi, table for two?" I mean, can't we be? Or the worst is this: they're busy, and they go, the little head nod, like what the hell is that? Anyway, we're in the hospitality business, okay? We're here to restore you. None of that, you know. How's the eye contact, you know? And I don't care if it's a hospitality business or a bank. That's a whole nother speech, though. So our job is to make you feel like we're on your side. Everything we do, just make you feel it's that simple. But let me ask you this. What do you think the state, ruh-roh, I'll probably press something. What is the state of service in America, just in general? Huh? It's going down. Anybody else? Too relaxed. I think it's awful. I think it's absolutely awful overall. Why is that? We talk about it. I've thought about this so much, I'm obsessed with the subject. Well, for me, it's because I think in general people think that to serve other people is demeaning. You know, nobody wants somebody to do that to them, right? I mean, I don't either. But if you think of service as demeaning, maybe that's what gets us there. I don't think that at all. In fact, in our company, we flip it and we say it's an honor to serve. Tonight I'm serving you. Tomorrow night you serve me. I want your service experience to be amazing. So I don't understand how we get there. And we think that in this crazy world that we're all living in, we're all in this crazy carousel. And we want you to get off that carousel and come into our restaurant, and particularly at Commanders or fine dining, but I think anywhere. We like to think of you coming in a protected bubble. And you're supposed to float in and float out, and we're supposed to pamper the hell out of you. And there's something called an absence of negatives. So if something negative happens, we serve you the wrong food, or we drop something to make, boom, the bubble bursts. So our goal is to not let, thank you, I'm sure that was my fault, not let that bubble burst, and to pamper you. And we want to, we're proud of it, we feel honored to do it. But you have to create a service culture. But that's a whole nother speech, so maybe you'll invite me back for another, okay. So, we used to fight at Commanders being a celebratory restaurant. We're like, well, we want to be a place you can come any night. You can come any day, you can just stop in. Well, guess what? Turns out you people will celebrate damn near anything. I mean, nobody likes holidays, or occasions more than me, except for Hallmark. About a year ago, I was at Sobu one night, and they said, "Oh, Dee, we have a blah blah party," and I'm like, "A what?" And they said, "Yes, it's a gender reveal party." I said, "What the shit is that?" Anyway, now we have gender reveal parties all the time. But anyway, it's fabulous. But those are creating dining memories. So going on to another one. There we go. This is a real true philosophy of Mom's. It's called literally first you make a friend in anything that you're doing. Employees, guests, suppliers, writers, even competitors. If you embrace everybody, I promise you it all comes back to you in spades. I can't tell you how many salesmen have told me they were new into town and she saw them in the kitchen. What are you doing? Well, sit down. Where are you from? What are you selling? All right, how can we help you? All these conversations. And this is, I really feel this attitude on her part has permeated the culture in New Orleans. For example, like when Paul Prudhomme left and went to do his own thing, we helped him. They loaned him money. How can we help you? He was still working with us at Mr. B's and doing that, and we were trying to help him. It's not like that other places. I remember being in Washington, D.C. at an event, and I was talking to a very famous chef, and I said, Patrick, well, I thought you were serving. I read in the thing that you would be serving tonight. And he said, oh, well, we were all supposed to serve, but we all got in a big fight and couldn't agree on what to serve, so we hired a caterer. I was like, that would never happen in New Orleans, because we really do embrace each other, and I think it came from that philosophy from Mom. She also tried to really embrace the industry. So the National Restaurant Association, I wish I knew what year it was founded, but that was a long time ago, 1919? So that was like the only organization that there really was, but there was nothing so much for fine dining. There was nothing. God knows there was no James Beard Awards. There really wasn't anything. Travel Holiday put out a magazine, and they said, these are the 50 best restaurants in America. And it was at the time, Brennan's was one of them. Well, Mom decided to invite all 50 restaurants to New Orleans and throw a party. Well, I mean, they came. Oh my God. We picked them up with police escorts, because you can do that in New Orleans. And so they come to town, we got a sign there waiting for them, waiting for Miss Jessica to come, and he'd come, and then there's a police escort, and then we can throw parties. I don't even have to describe that. I mean, there was one on a riverboat and one at Brent. Anyway, she just did it up. She always said that the people from San Francisco came and they competed so badly with each other, so negative, they didn't even know each other. So they got to know each other in New Orleans. She said it was like a week later and they hadn't left. She's like, y'all got to go home. We got to go back to work. But it was that type of thing that that actually led to Dorona and some other organizations, but it was just restaurateurs, just like right now, wanting to get together because we can commiserate, basically. Later, she did a version of that called the American Cuisine Symposium. And same thing, we all went to pick people up at the airport, and Mom's no fool, so guess who she sent me to pick up? Tim and Nina Zagat. Anyway, that worked out well for a really long time. They're really good friends, and they always remember that. T, you remember when you picked me up in the police escort? So when you can do these extra things and embrace people in your industry, they embrace you back. But a lot of what she does, I gotta tell you, is about the common good. And she's, that greatest generation where it's just buck up and do what's best for your country, your family, your city, and very, very offended by the whole me thing that seems to have happened. My Aunt Adelaide was a glamorous Annie Mame of our family, and her definition of class is how you behave when nobody's looking. And another saying that we have in our company, every job you do is a self-portrait. How's your portrait looking right now? So these are the type of things that she taught us, that we teach, that keep things moving in our company. That's Mom and her buddy Paul. Mentors, get one, get some, be one. I mean, she very early on was embraced by a whole bunch of people. She certainly her older brother before he died, and sister, but then Jerry Burns at the 21 Club. Helen McCauley introduced her to Jim Beard. Jim, not James. Jim was at the house all the time in my life. Those are some good stories, for sure. Anyway, big man, large man. Funny story. One day he went to get in the shower at Mom's house in the afternoon between lunch and dinner. They just had a long lunch. Oh, come to the house, we'll come back for dinner. He couldn't fit in the shower. Anyway, whatever. Love Jim. Yeah, he was a big guy. So But it was no accident that she sought these people out. She was, looking for the best people in the industry, and it's something that you really ought to do. And you never know where you might need to ask for help. I'll quickly tell you the mobster story. Long story short, when we had Brennan's of Dallas, we were open for like 2 weeks, and all of a sudden my family was staying at the Adolphus, and they had a little room in the afternoon. Like mom was taking a nap, my uncles were out in the living room, whatever. And these men come knocking on the door, and they come in, and basically they said, well, we'd like to buy the restaurant. And I said, oh, well, who are you? And that's lovely, and the restaurant's not for sale, we just opened. And then they said, no, we're going to buy the restaurant. Okay, now my uncles are coming in the bedroom, waking my mom up, going, there's some like mobster types out here who want to buy the restaurant that's not for sale. So they go, what do we do? What do we do? Yeah, we know what to do. So pre-cell phone, but they had the hotel phone. So they call the New Orleans mobsters, right? We do some things well in New Orleans, and that's one of them. And so she calls the New Orleans mobsters, and they tell me, hey, I'm not even going to say his name. I'm still scared to say the guy's name. Anyway, dead, and I'm scared to say it. And they get on the phone with him, and he says, put me on the phone with him. And they said all they heard, the Dallas mobsters, they didn't hear anything. They just saw him go like this. Put the phone down, walked out, never came back. Anyway, you never know where you might need help from, and just ask for it is the point. One quick thing, when the mobsters started hanging out in the restaurant too much, and it was going to run off other people at some point, you know how you get rid of mobsters in your restaurant? Mobsters like really good food. So you serve the hot food cold and the cold food hot and no seasoning. Anyway, they left after that. Anyway. So another one of the critical things is called fire in the belly. You got to find it, you got to light it, and then you can fan it. It's in there somewhere with almost everybody. There's some people that are just dead on arrival, but almost everybody's got some little fire in there that you can fan, and you got to cultivate it if there's a spark. Jamie, who you saw, this is the chef's meeting every day behind Commander's Palace, and they're fanning the flame in those meetings and talking about what we need to be doing. But my chef, Jamie, I used to say that he had fire in the belly and a twinkle in his, fire in the belly, magic in his hands, and a twinkle in his eye. He was kind of naughty, a lot of chefs are. Anyway, there was women that would come to Commander's just to watch him through the window. He was cute and adorable, but he had that fire in the belly. We wrote the Commander's Kitchen cookbook together. He died not long after that, but we were doing a book signing, actually in Houston, Texas. Long line of people. This woman comes up, she's got the hair and the whole thing going on, and she comes up, I'm sitting right next to him, and she says, Jamie, write something sexy. And I'm sitting next to him, just kicking him on the table, going, later I'm like, dude, what'd you write? He's like, nothing. I'm like, come on, what'd you write? He said, meet me in the kitchen. I'm like, oh, okay, you got away with that one. You have been through this before. So you got to create that culture of passion, and one of the big ways we do it is we call it foodie meetings. We have foodie meetings. You're not allowed to talk about the plumbing or the guy you need to fire. We only talk about food. One of the dishes that came out of that meeting, as many have, but one that you would know, is black and redfish. They were sitting there talking one day about what would be the greatest way to cook fish, and that's a long story, but damn near killed off a whole species. But anyway, so one of those core beliefs that's a part of that is that you have a responsibility, and you, Mom and I, truly believe that you're not going to be a happy person unless you are being everything you're capable of, and you have an absolute responsibility to do that. And we believe that, and it's about never letting your standards down. Let me ask you this. What is the biggest enemy of the best? Huh? Close? The good. Think about that one. That's a good one. Like, were we good enough today? We're not going to be the best if we think like that. Biggest enemy of the best is the good. Another saying that we have in the family is, you will not suffer the curse of low expectations. And that is a curse. It really is a curse. And we talk about leadership and the collaborative nature of that. And a guy I love named Jack Welch said that leadership is a constant interactive process aimed at consensus. A constant interactive process aimed at consensus. Failing consensus, leaders must lead. But it's a great way to look at it, and one of the things that we talk about. And this is one we talk about too. A fanatical commitment to the consistent execution of the fundamentals, and yes, I do like to say that fast, but a fanatical commitment to the consistent execution of the fundamentals. So, is the hot food hot? Is the cold food cold? Is the bathroom clean? If so, then I'll talk to you about your 5-hour egg and your fancy new dish or whatever, and that is a good one, I must tell you. But really, if you don't care enough, I always will say a great chef cares if the iced tea is good tonight. You know, are we doing the fundamentals right? And you know, and part of what we do, uh-oh, is that thing gonna start? Anyway, I'll keep talking and we'll see what happens. Try things. If they don't work, quit. She's tried a bunch of things like 25-cent martinis, started jazz brunch, breakfast at Brennan's. We did a radio show. We have a radio show again now. Not quite. Oh, so you're trying a lot of things because you want to pioneer in your field. But you also have to have what we call a healthy paranoia. You know, if you're in the restaurant business, you probably already have that. And we also have, we call it ambitious dissatisfaction. We're never quite happy enough with it. But entrepreneurial terror is one that some of you might be familiar with. I am. It'll keep you up at night when you go. But all this takes energy. And I have a theory called energy units, which means I think we have 2,136 energy units. And when you use them all up, you're dead. So when somebody is doing something that's wasting one of your energy units, it really makes me mad, and I don't do it. So if you think of it that way, then you focus on the positive and the things that you can have an effect on. And Mom told that story this way. She was good friends with Phyllis Diller, if you're old enough to know who Phyllis Diller was. Anyway, she's a good friend. Phyllis comes down, and Mom said, Jesus, Phyllis, you look fantastic. Don't give me a joke about the latest facelifts. What did you do? She said, you really want me to tell you what I did? I said, yeah. She said, I got rid of all the negative people in my life. I still write some of them checks, but I got rid of all the negative people in my life. Last time I saw Phyllis, this has nothing to do with anything, but I'm telling you anyway. Tell me a quick joke. You ready? So, two Irishmen walk out of a bar. It can happen. Okay, anyway, I like that. So, let me some Phyllis. So, along the way, we think you're supposed to have a lot of fun. We're a work hard, play hard family. And I think New Orleanians have figured this out maybe better than some other places in the country, that life is really meant to be lived and not endured. We might take that a little too far at times, but that's totally better than the opposite, in my opinion. One of Mom's sayings is that good girls went to finishing school, but she went to Café Lafitte. Anyway, that was sort of a drinking Algonquin round table in the French Quarter in her day. The point is, work hard, have fun though. And our family did things like start a parade called Bacchus, so it's about the king of wine, you know, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. They got a celebrity to be the king, and she got all the first celebrities. So we really believe you're supposed to have fun and work hard, and you're supposed to allow yourself to get excited about business and your profession, because that's how you can really start to make things happen. So let me show you this little clip, and then see what you all, this is the documentary.
I don't even know if she owns a pan. But she has one of the most amazing palates that I've ever ran into.
Nobody's doing anything. Can you make it louder? Okay,
Ella Brennan, what an iconic name, what an iconic woman. I would say that there's no more important female restaurateur ever.
She was always this grand personage who presided over a kitchen that was an incubator of talent.
She has this gift of being able to bring out the best in people.
When Ella started talking to me about Paul Prudhomme, I said, are you crazy? People are not going to eat his food. I mean, this is Cajun food.
She knew nothing about the restaurant business. She came right out of high school.
I was learning the difference between beef, lamb, pork. I don't know what I was doing. I was just learning.
Ella was a celebrity restaurateur before there were celebrity chefs.
As things started evolving, we became really a great team. I could really execute a lot of those visions that she had.
Generally, a person who has made it to where Ella is today also has had a little chip on their shoulder where they had to prove something to somebody.
So many people will have such a life-altering setback, you know, literally the project you've worked on for your whole life, to be fired from by family members, no less.
She knew how to make a business work. For a woman, that was unbelievable, because you have to understand, women back then were not aggressive business women. You know, that was unheard of.
You have to remind yourself that Ella was working in a man's world because she's so much who she is.
She knows exactly what's going on. You know, it's not just looking through you, she's looking all the way around inside you, everywhere. She knows.
Her life's work has permeated the whole landscape of American cooking, American restaurateuring.
She's like the pizzazz ambassador of New Orleans. I mean, she's just got this pizzazz. There's not another word for it.
So Mom and I believe that amidst all this, we are supposed to create jobs, help rebuild our city, mentor and motivate many people in groups and one-on-one, fight apathy, corruption, and bad manners, create wealth, build careers, and support and fund many effective philanthropic and charitable causes. And in that process, we're supposed to have a damn good time. There's no time for laziness or inaction. There is time for rest and play and naughtiness. We're supposed to go out fully spent and wringing wet. I'm a New Orleanian, we're a little bad, and we like that about ourselves. So speaking of bad, I'm just going to tell you a couple quotes here and then see if you have some questions. I found this Eleanor Roosevelt quote, since we're speaking about female leaders. And it said, "I once had a very honored to have a rose named after me. The Eleanor Roosevelt rose, until I looked in the rose catalog and read the rose description, which said, not good in a bed, but good up against a wall." I swear to God, I really found that quote. That's really true. How could you make that up? But she also said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And it is better to light a candle than curse the darkness." My other favorite fellow, Winston Churchill, "We make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give." But let me just give you this. This is the best piece of advice I've ever been given. I was raised by really about 5 women, but really my mom and my 2 aunts, and they're the most amazing women. And if you only remember one thing from today, I hope you'll remember this. It's the most important advice I've ever been given. Moisturize, moisturize, moisturize. Even the guys are laughing a little. Anyway, that's what I got. I don't know if you